Hi Stonewall, I'm Monty Stevie, and today I'm going to be talking about Lancers. A Lancer is a character designed to be a foil to the main protagonist, so that we can gain more information about a main protagonist by a character meant to reflect them. A Lancer who is written right, who will give us information about a protagonist inversely, rather than us just getting that normal way by following the main protagonist. There is about as many different types of main protagonist Lancers as there is main protagonists in general. There's also Lancers designed for other characters outside of the main protagonist. A great example is the rival character. A rival is, by definition, a Lancer because they are meant to reflect the main protagonist and be a goal to overcome, which great for character growth. If a character can overcome their rival with ease, it shows how much they have grown. It also gives a little bit more of a smaller stake type character moment. Because, yes, it's not life or death if you can beat your rival at whatever game is a big deal in this universe, but it is a cathartic victory when the rival, who is most likely a jerk, is taken down a peg because the main character beat them. A great example of this is Harry in his rivalry with Draco from the Harry Potter series. Ever since basically day one of these two knowing each other, they have hated each other and basically been on sight ever since. When Draco joined the Quidditch team, that was basically the start of them having an official rivalry rather than just the two hating each other's guts and making fun of each other and blaming each other for situations whenever possible. And the best part is, whenever Harry does beat Draco in Quidditch, it does take him down a peg. Whenever a character who has a rival beats their rival, it does give a lot of stuff for us to work with. And especially if the rival is something that is a staple of the series. For example, Pokemon. Gary Oak is the best example of this, especially since he is a massive jerk in the beginning. A rival doesn't necessarily need to be an active staple of every single episode, but having them show up every now and then and being a complete and utter jerk face does give us a lot of reason for the main character to utterly destroy them and eviscerate their bloodline. Theoretically speaking, and not literally. It's just purely poetically. A rival is meant to serve the purpose of a smaller stake way to beat this character. Even if the entire point of the series is some sort of game or some sort of competition in the background to become the very best, a rival character being the end does not necessarily mean the series is over. There's also some other bigger stakes thing probably going on. A lot of the time, the main rival isn't actually the final force to beat. It just shows how much the character has actually grown up since the beginning of the series. Particularly, how the rival reacts when the rival is beaten. When the main character beats the rival, there are a few paths for the rival to take. Most notably, accept the defeat or don't accept the defeat. And with these, there are a few branching off instances that the rival can go with the writing. Let's stick with accepting the defeat real quick. By accepting the defeat, the rival could take the path of joining the main group and cheering on the main character and helping when possible. This happens a lot whenever there's an ensemble cast and the main character could always use an actual official Lancer on the group. The rival joining the group is easier than any other Lancer type joining because most likely the only bad blood between the Lancer and the rest of the hero's team is just the Lancer being annoying AF for the first few seasons. And even then, most likely the Lancer will get the turn into the butt of the joke treatment by the rest of the crew for a while. But with this, the Lancer joining the group can lead to a lot of great character moments. With the Lancer showing that they have grown up and are still probably interested in being the main protagonist, but only them are allowed to beat the main protagonist. They won't let anyone else beat the main protagonist. And will, on active occasion, tell the main protagonist not to deal with the chumps and leave it to them. perfect growing work for the rival Lancer to become a different type of Lancer in general. Somewhere else that the accept the defeat Lancer can go is see you next time. The Lancer walking off into the sunset and telling the hero not to lose or it'll make them look bad. Which honestly is great character motivation. It shows that the Lancer also grew up again around the journey and not just the main protagonist. And it also gives some sort of a conclusion to this part of the story. Yeah, sure, we could see the rival in a few scenes here and there as the character goes on, and it also opens the door for new rival characters to spring up. It's pretty good when it shows that the rival is still in the background, and even better when the hero is on their last leg and you just pan to the rival cheering them on and telling them to get with the program. It's always great. It shows that everyone else in the world is consistently growing as well, and this character has a lot of potential outside of just being the rival. And then there's the path that it can take with the rival character and not accepting the defeat. This can happen with the rival staying the rival for a while, where the hero has been the rival a few times, but the rival refuses to take that at all. Period. And he goes to basically the entire series refusing to accept it, and the hero just lives in his head rent-free. It's natural if you have a rival for them to be consistently singing about them and just wanting to beat you. The rival refusing to take the defeat shows that they have not changed and are refusing to grow, and they'll go through desperate measures to win. And those desperate measures could lead to them becoming an actual antagonist, joining the team bad guys. A Lancer rival joining the bad guys could be a really dark moment, especially if the rival type is former best friend Lancer. Not accepting the defeat could lead the hero to have more motivation against the main bad guy because of what they did to the Lancer. Especially if the bad guy manipulates the Lancer and later kills them. Great character motivation if you killed the friendly rival character who was going down a dark path. Or it just drives his main character to beat the Lancer again even more because of what the Lancer has turned into. Now, none of these ways are necessarily better than the other, depending on what you want the Lancer to be. But the rival Lancer is not the only type. The other type that is more common is the former antagonist Lancer. A Lancer who was a former antagonist is similar to the rival Lancer, except when and if they join the main group, it's going to be a little bit more tension to it, because most likely this Lancer has actually tried to kill these characters. A great example of this is Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. He starts hunting down the rest of the group and being the Lancer in mirror to Aang. Was any Lancer, even before they join Team Good Guy and are still an active main antagonist to the characters, them having their Lancer role is still probably intact. With them acting as the Lancer, they are going to have several moments where it basically reflects what the main character is going through right now. With this, Zuko consistently, throughout Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3, has parallels to Aang's arc. Aang and Zuko's arcs focus on their destiny, and the fate set in front of them and how they should act. Destinies that weren't picked by them, but by other people. And they have to fill the shoes of, and they have to find the way of doing it their own way. In the end, Zuko does eventually join Team Avatar after several bumps in the road of his character development. And not everyone exactly happy with his turn of events, because he had his chance back in Season 2 that he only joined in Season 3. His sister, who's kind of a psychopath, joins him, gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse for him to regain his honor. Throughout the entirety of the series, Zuko's honor has been his greatest driving force, with us learning that he's hunting down the Avatar so he can regain it, and basically being his catchphrase and meme point. Zuko regaining his honor is his biggest part of character driving, and him being able to regain it potentially is what keeps him from going Team Good Guy right away. And he needed this. He needed to return to the Fire Nation to learn more about his past and his family lineage, and also gain some new perspective. Throughout his time in the Earth Kingdom, on the run from Azula because, Psycho, he learned what the 100-Year War has been doing to the world, and most notably the Earth Kingdom. In that the Fire Nation's war isn't exactly justified or good at all. So because of this, he has to bite the bullet and do the good thing and join the good guys. And everyone's not exactly trusting him right away because he tried to kill them on multiple occasions. He betrayed them when they needed him the most. And, oh yeah, he helped Azula kill Aang once. Zuko has to earn his redemption with the rest of the Team Avatar, including but not limited to helping Sokka break his dad out of jail and helping Katara go on a revenge spree against the guy who killed her mother. Don't worry, she learned that revenge is not a good thing. But Zuko had to gain the trust of Team Avatar. And, well, his arc did not stop at the end of the series. It's still going in the comics, where he's still learning how to, well, who he is. It's a great way of storytelling when we know that the characters have gone so far from where they began, but still have places to grow in their lives. Avatar: The Last Airbender does everything writing-wise amazingly. Another type of Lancer is the dragon archetype. The dragon, another perfect example from Avatar: The Last Airbender, is Azula. The dragon archetype of Lancer is the bad guy's Lancer. The dragon is the type of Lancer, or second in command, that works for the bad guy, and we're probably going to see more than the BBEG. The dragon is probably going to have a big, heavy hand in actually fighting the main characters, and it's going to be a very imposing threat throughout the story. Because while the BBEG is endgame, you cannot exactly have the main characters consistently having small victories against him in person. While with the dragon, as the second in command, it makes sense that the dragon would have a more personal hand in fighting the main characters. And also, the fight will be more personal. And Azula is a perfect example of this. Every single time she is on screen, she is winning in some capacity. Even if Team Avatar gets some small victory, she got the main one. We only see her officially lose twice, and even then, it took so much to get to that point that she had to have an actual third act breakdown to beat her once and for all. So, as a dragon, Azula being sent after Team Avatar and Zuko in Season 2 makes sense. Because, as the dragon, the Lancer and Dragon matchup is basically inevitable. When matching up characters to fight, it makes sense that the main character and the BBEG are going to fight. Eventually, it's basically guaranteed. Meanwhile, the powerhouse is probably going to be getting the highest body count of any character, or dealing with natural disasters, or battlefield hazards, or keeping back different things. Well, the smart guy was probably dealing with other types of problems that are more tactical rather than combative. So, the smart guy could also be getting a lot of bodies as well. Meanwhile, the heart, given what type of heart it is, the heart is probably dealing with either healing job or being a quiet badass. But either way, the Lancer and Dragon are the most clear-cut matchup. That's why Season 3, the final act between Azula and Zuko, that Agni Kai is amazing. For those who have never watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, an Agni Kai is a firebending duel, where between two firebenders, they have a fight, and whoever comes out on top basically wins and decides the fate of the loser. This is how Zuko got that big scar on his eye, because he refused to fight his father in an Agni Kai. And that's also how he got banished and needed to regain his honor. So in his fight against Azula, as she is currently going midway through her third act breakdown right now, And he is the Lancer, she is the Dragon. It makes sense that the two would be fighting. It also makes sense from a narrative standpoint that Zuko is not the one to beat her. Zuko's entire character arc was him learning that he did not need to be what everyone else wanted him to be. Throughout the entire time, as the Crown Prince of the Fire Nation, he had certain expectations. He had to be a phenomenal, amazing bender. He had to be perfect in every single way, but he was never that. He had to speak in turn. He couldn't stand out. He couldn't go against his father. Meanwhile, Azula was everything that the Crown Princess should be. In fact, Ozai wanted her to be the heir instead of Zuko, and even was willing to kill Zuko at one point. Yet the family is very unhealthy. So, Azula losing to Zuko specifically would not have made sense from a narrative standpoint. It just shows that Zuko's family rivalry would have ended the exact same way that Iroh did not want his to end, with violent brother striking down a brother and all that stuff. Meanwhile, Katara beating Azula makes sense narratively. While these two had more on-screen interactions, and though they don't have that many personal stakes against it, Azula made one main mistake against fighting Katara. She never fought Katara before, and has no clue what Katara is capable of. Katara and Azula's character arcs mimic each other very much. They're both the youngest sister of two brothers. They are both phenomenal benders who, in their own right, will strive. They both have significant symmetry when it comes down to their designs, and they're both underestimated by people around them because they're young girls, and they're freaking terrifying in a fight. Well, Katara is less terrifying because she is the heart of her group. I'll talk more in depth in hearts in another video, but as the heart, Katara's biggest strength isn't her physical attribute or in her way of fighting or strategy like other characters. Her biggest strength is her kind and caring emotions, her emotional and motherly drive. Azula underestimated Katara, and that's why Azula lost and finished her third act breakdown, sobbing, chained to the floor. The Dragon and Lancer are two characters who are inevitably going to fight at one point, and their character arcs are probably going to be very personally entwined if they're in the same story. Because they are two characters who are going to be matched up in any situation. And something else that can often happen with Lancers is being labeled as the second strongest. Narratively speaking, the second strongest being the Lancer makes sense. Well, the big guy is technically the best and strongest out of everyone. The big guy is labeled as such as the powerhouse due to being responsible for big hits in fights. Like holding a ginormous door open, or busting down a ginormous door, or dealing with waves of enemies at once. While the Lancer and Hero are probably better combatants overall, the two are normally dealing with actual boss fights, while the powerhouse is dealing with everything else. Meanwhile, the Hero is the hero, going to be dealing with the big bads, and the Lancer, well, is going to be immediately labeled as the one who's the second strongest, especially if it's the former antagonist or rival archetypes. Something that can often happen with the second strongest archetype is always getting their butt beat. Because the Lancer is the second strongest, and the Lancer is probably going to be the one to jump into the fight first, it's common for the Lancer to consistently get completely throttled by the villain the first time they show up. It's a consistency thing. It's similar to how when a physical force shows up, the powerhouse is going to dive in and also get butt beat. But that does not make sense, especially since these two characters are supposed to be strong. Showing that a character is strong by beating up the two strongest characters, minus the hero, well, does technically make sense from a theoretical standpoint, but doing it every single time kind of lessens the strength of these two characters. There are other ways to show that a force is imposing and not just using the Worf effect. Something that often does happen with Lancers that is not a problem is fighting the second strongest character, or letting the hero handle the fight from here. A Lancer will often be the first on the scene to a fight, and this is something that you can do instead of the Lancer getting immediately dogged on by the main bad guy. Have the Lancer show up to fight the main bad guy first, and just holding off and stalling for time until the main character gets there. And when he does, the Lancer can say, "You can take it from here, I'm taking a nap." Which, fair enough, makes sense. When a character is trusting enough of the main protagonist to step away from a fight, it shows how much they've grown, especially if it was not always like that. Especially if this character is normally all about doing it themselves. It's a great character establishing moment if you let the Lancer get some wins in and actually understand when they're out of their league. Because not every main character's Lancer is going to be a character that just dives in headfirst to a fight without thinking. Yeah, sure, they might just dive in headfirst with some thinking, but at the very least they're thinking a little bit. There's also the best friend archetype of Lancers, or second in command. This one is going to have oftentimes start out on the main character's side, or join pretty quickly, because a lot of the time they are the traits that the main character is lacking. Like a main character that's more stoic is going to have a more goofy Lancer, or a main character that's a slightly more naive is going to have a more experienced Lancer, or a character that's more optimistic is going to have a more jaded Lancer. The Lancer being the lone wolf archetype in any group is kind of guaranteed unless you have the grumpy adoptive uncle in there already. Which even then, a lone wolf should not be complaining every 5 minutes that I work alone. When you're working in a group, face it, you've succumbed to the found family trope, just deal with it. When it comes down to a Lancer, we have to deal with and remember that a character that's built off other characters should be able to stand alone. Though by definition, a Lancer character is meant to foil the main protagonist and reflect their struggles, the Lancer also should be able to handle themselves in a fight and be their own character without the main character around. If all your side characters don't do anything while the main character is not there, it kind of makes the story feel flat and these characters feel like actual characters. While we should be seeing them as dynamic rather than static unless you want them to be static. But that's all for today. In conclusion, a Lancer is a character meant to foil other characters, and not just the main character. Lancers can have Lancers as well, and those Lancers can have Lancers as well. If I say Lancers one more time, the word is going to lose all meaning. Lancer, 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 blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I should probably end it here, because if I say it again, I think I might explode. In conclusion, for today, a Lancer character is meant to foil the main protagonist and mirror them. A character built as a Lancer rival is going to eventually have to come to the conclusion that the main character is the best, or succumb to always being second fiddle. A main character that's an antagonist could end up at having a third act breakdown as they cannot win, or joining the main group through the story and becoming a traditional Lancer. A Lancer that's second in command or best friend is going to inevitably grow to have some sort of complementary aspect to the main character, and that's how it should go. A Lancer as a character should be able to stand alone, but also alongside the main character without getting subject to the Worf effect. Anyways, that's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video, and leave in the comments what you want to hear more of. I'm going to make a heart video coming soon. It's probably on my channel eventually soon, maybe next week. But that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the subscribe button if you did, along with the like and the bell so you get notified. And today's question: what's your favorite Lancer in media? And that's all for today. I'm off to fight the moon. Bye!